A very warm welcome to all of you, us who join us online today, and a special welcome to Denise Ekale Kum, who is our guest today. We're going to see a film that she made, a film which you can see. There is a link on the website, and after that we will have a conversation. So I'd just like to give you an with Denise. She is a filmmaker and a development producer at Pentertainment. She's self-taught writer-director who is enamored with the power of story in various forms. She grew up in Cameroon and in Germany and has lived in Brazil and Japan. Combining rich visual experiences with character-driven narratives, she infuses her work with unique multiple cultural and intersectional sensitivities. Her first shorts, Winter Solstice, Natsu's Treasure, and Whisperando were screened internationally and received multiple awards. So today we show Natsu No Takaramono, translated Natsu's Treasure, which was shot in Tokyo. So yes, I welcome you to watch the film. Click the link on the website, and after that we will have a conversation with Denise. So Denise, very welcome. I look forward to the film.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Nana, 許してね。
つーちゃんか、久しぶり。なんちゃんもういないよ。オーストラリア帰っちゃった。え？うん、昨日。あ、ちょっと待って。これね、ななちゃんから。本当はうちに届けるみたいだったんだけど、はい。 まあまた来年会えるよ。また来るから。聞いてる？まあいいや、バイバイ。
ありがとう。
すーちゃんへ。この前の喧嘩はごめんなさい。ネックレスが壊れて怒りすぎたかな。でもそのネックレスよりつーちゃんが大切だよ。また日本へ帰るときたくさん遊ぼうね。それまでに手紙書いてね。ナナより。
When I saw the movie the first time, I was just taken by it. Denise, I just introduced yourself. I tried to introduce the film a little bit, but I'm sure you can do a much better job than I do. So would you like just to say some general comments on the film.
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for having me, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to show my work. And I'm very honored that you are so appreciative of it. It's a film that I shot, I think, in 2015 in Japan while I was on holiday there. And it was basically a very tough challenge because I always wanted to shoot the film in Japan, but it was always like a future plan because I knew that I didn't have the money to bring a crew or, buy a crew there and all the technical stuff that you need to actually film abroad. So I just decided to just try with everything I have, just with my own passion, and see if a film can come out of it that can touch people. So I'm always very honored when I meet people who say that the film kind of touched them and reached them in a way, because it was very done with just passion, effort, and just, the basic material and people who were there to willing to help. So I'm very happy that it had this.
Oh, that's, no, I thought for me it really touched me, and it was just a really beautiful experience just watching it. And then I did watch it a few times, and I invite everybody to go and watch it a few times. Each time I saw something different in it. I'd like to ask you that the film, about the film and some of the motivations about the film. It's often announced as a film about friendship. There's a lot of subtleties in it. So could you tell us something about the motivation, the importance for you to make this film, and also how much it relates to your own experiences?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the motivations for the film is what I already said up front, was this idea of filming something in Japan. The second one is basically this film is part of a season short film series that I'm working on. So I've already shot 3 films. It was the second one, and it's for the season of summer. So for me, the season of summer was always something to be about emotional warmth, just feeling good. And, emotional warmth for me also often means family or friendship. So I thought of telling a story about 2 friends. And at the beginning, it was, I think the very first idea I had was like a road trip between 2 guys, and it ended up being the story about a little girl. But the theme of it basically is just being there for a friend, or basically working on your friendships, also doing something to kind of treasure them. So as for my personal, I mean, that is also the personal relationship that I have to it. Is this also that I am somebody who gives great importance to great friendships, and I was trying basically with that film also to show that this is a great friendship budding, even though they're still very young.
Yes, I in previous discussions we have had, it's clear that you speak about your personal Black experience, and you explore that in different ways. This, of course, this film is the experience of a Black girl in Japan, which might be different. It's a different context than the experiences of Black people here in Germany. Would you like to speak a little bit about that, and if that was of importance to you to think that, and how you experienced that yourself? Or
yes. Yes, it was, I think, one of the reasons why I wanted to tell the story, or just this little girl navigating those spaces, was that, and also why it was in Japan. I think I grew up in Berlin, in an environment where at the beginning there were, maybe when I came to Germany when I was 10 years old, and let's say Black bodies and faces were a little bit more rare, whereas today it's becoming more common in the city of Berlin, at least. And when I went to Tokyo, I felt like I was basically taken back into a Germany from before, where I was, the only face around and everything. But what I found also very interesting is that my experience was entirely different than the experience that I had made in the early 90s in Germany. So, for example, there was still an othering going on, or exoticism or something, but there was a lack of fear and also a lack of this kind of negative stereotyping, especially like belittling or just fear and anger that you would sometimes feel from some people as a Black person navigating a white space. I felt that in Japan that was lacking somehow, and it quite on the contrary, I made some experiences where I was treated better because I was a foreigner or perceived as a Westerner, basically, which is how most Africans are perceived. They think most are from Europe or America, so they're kind of in the category of Westerners, so you get treated a little bit differently. But what I also wanted to say is that to tell with this film is that there's a difference between when you're actually like I was somebody coming there and also knowing I'm going to go back home. I never had a claim on Japan as my own. And there's a difference with somebody who actually grows up there, lives there. And I think their struggle to get accepted, to have this Japanese identity is far greater than the experiences that I made as somebody who considers myself a foreigner when I am there. So I think I also wanted to tell the story of children because I have seen some children, also some mixed race children who grow up in that space who have maybe African parents and are perceived very much as others, even though it is their space. So I wanted to also show with this child without so much, it is not a story of aggression or how other people see her. It's just showing that it's her space and it's her own. So it was important to me to tell this story without making a big comment about it, but just letting her exist, breathe, and we can really see that she belongs there. That was important.
Yes, that was for me. Like when you say, hey, when I was in Japan, I had no claim there. While when I was watching the film, that the film of the protagonist was very much that she clearly belonged there.
Yes.
And I thought that was very strong in the scene when she goes into the temple and how comfortable she is there. You just see, and the fact that she speaks Japanese and so on. So that was, now, would you feel that for young people here in Germany, and especially for people who feel at times othered when they and feel that they are denied a sense to be the norm, to just belong here, is there something that people can, that you would like people maybe to take away, or maybe look in certain ways at the film? Yes. That there may be ways of seeing the film that can open up discussions or ideas, both for people, I would say, both for people who are othered within Germany, but also for people who have little experience or understanding of what othering means.
Yes. That's why I think I chose, it goes very much into the how I made the film and what was important to me, because I think the message to take away, whether you grow up in Japan or Germany or wherever in the world, it is important sometimes, especially when your environment gives you this feeling that you don't belong. It is important sometimes to stay within yourself and within your rights and within knowing what you know. Because sometimes other people can confuse you. If you're always told you are another, you belong somewhere else, you can be confused about whether you belong. So I feel like in this movie, as I said before, it is not about how other people perceive her or what they want from her. It's not about them telling her anything. It is about her just being in that space and we see that it's hers. So I feel that what people can take away from Germany or whatever is that if you belong, you feel comfortable in a space. If it's the space you know by heart, and you know the Edeka by the corner, you know the kiosk besitzer, you know everything, then this is your space, and don't let anybody else tell you otherwise because they think that you look different. But sometimes it's good to just stay within your own feeling and just knowing who you are and not let other people confuse you. So I think this is what I was trying to express with the film by not giving anybody else a space or a commentary about whether she belongs there or not, and just feeling. So I think even people who have less experiences by watching this film, maybe they can sometimes understand that whether you belong to a place or not, it has nothing to do with how you look, and it has nothing to do even with your ancestry. It is really how you, sometimes you can, before judging or asking somebody where you're from, maybe just take a step back and look at them, observe them, and you will know right away if they're from here or if they're indeed, like I was in Japan, from somewhere else.
Yeah, thank you. Last question I like to ask you about the film is that the film is often, I think, marketed as a children's film. And I'm really wondering how you see that. I could see that it's a wonderful film for a child to see. The fact that the girl is a young person might not necessarily mean that the film is mainly or purely for a young audience. How do you think about that? Thinking about for whom is this film mainly made,
Yes.
or how do you feel about that marketing of the film as a children's film?
Mm. Yes, I think for me it's a difficult question. It's basically the question between art and capitalism, I think, the way things are. Because in order to sell a product, you need to put a label on it. It needs to be put in a box. But I think the way I feel, it is hard to put it in a box sometimes. So, in order for the short film to be seen somewhere, it needs to be applied. It needs to have labels. So it is a youth film. It is a drama. It is a science fiction film. That's how the festivals also work. You know, they want to know your label in order to categorize you. And I also found it very difficult because I think it's a film that children can see, but I often felt that adults take away so much more from it.
Yeah.
But since all this categorization has to happen, then it was one of the easiest label for the film to go under, even though, as you said, it is not a film that was made primarily for children, nor is it a film that works primarily for children. But it is also how the programming, I mean, I often watched films at festivals, and sometimes the children's section had wonderful films that were not specifically for children, but just because the subject of the film was young, it was labeled like that. So it is very difficult, I find, even for my other films. Like the first film that I made, Winter Solstice, it's a film about fear, but because it has elements of fear, like a little, frightening moment here and there, it is also categorized as a thriller or as a horror movie even or something, and that's not really what it is. So for me personally, I find it difficult to put my art. I've been told many times that that's how you should do it from the get-go. You should choose the label and develop that way you can have the most success. But I feel that it limits me, and I like actually making these films that kind of surpass the boundaries a little bit. The genres kind of blur into each other, because it's not so much about choosing a genre and then making a film. It's about choosing an emotion, a character, a setting, what I really try to tell. And I actually love it that it doesn't just fit into one category.
Now, for me, that is also what made the film very rich. I felt it's very layered, and as I say, it spoke really to me, and I got impression to a lot of adults. And I also see the beauty of seeing it together with a younger person. This is exactly the questions I wanted to ask you about the film, but there might be anything else that you would like to add, thinking about we are here in Markk, Museum am Rautenbouw, in the World Cultures and Art Museum, with audiences who find us. Mm-hmm. I know you are carefully to think if you want to work with museums like ours, and that felt me very honored that you wanted to work with us. Is there anything else that you would like to add about this particular film and that we do this event here in Markk?
Yes, I think I can say I was surprised, obviously, by the invitation and the connection, because the way my perception, my previous perception of these kinds of museum is basically they have, I don't know, some stolen statues in the corner somewhere, and they talk about the past in a way that I don't always agree with, and that is more about showing other cultures, quote unquote, but in a way that others them very much and kind of puts them in a cage and on display. And that is always very difficult, because I've been in like anthropological museums, and they show my culture, and I need to identify with the things on display, nor do I feel comfortable in the room anymore, because it others me, but it others the culture. It's not connection. So that's why when you told me about how you're reinventing the museum and how the perception is changing, and that colonialism is being talked about, and then that a lot of important things are being talked about to kind of reshape these stories, and that also choosing a film like mine, I feel like you are indeed maybe not that much interested in, like, this display, but in how these different cultures weave into each other in modern day, and what we actually are now as a global culture, because I think there's been so much intermixing happening, you know, sometimes in very sad moments, but also in good ones, where I feel that it is not correct anymore to look at it just through the lens of science when you talk about other cultures or people from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
So yes, I welcome your new approach. I'm very curious about it.
Yeah, yeah, that is, and the project you're referring to is the upcoming exhibition Hey Hamburg, kennst du Douala Manga? Sorry, Hey Hamburg, kennst du Douala Manga Bell? This is an exhibition that we have worked for over 2 years on, and which really looked at the relationship between Germany and Cameroon. And this big hero in Cameroon, Douala Manga Bell, which many people in Germany don't know about. But it's an exhibition for specifically for young people, for families. And just to end our discussion, what's just your personal experience? I know you grew up in Douala. What was the capital of Cameroon during German colonial times? What did you learn about Rudolf Douala Manga Bell at school? I know you did primary school in Douala. What you remember? Any memories of him?
Yes, I do definitely remember him being celebrated as one of the heroes from Cameroon's side of colonialism, or the anti-colonial movement, because even thinking back, I thought not everything we learned about colonialism was as nuanced as I would want it to be, but they definitely, or at least I remember that in school there was a moment where we talked about the people who were who fought against it, and even as a child I felt it was very empowering to know that not only that people tried, that it was not just them being rolled over and having no choice, but there were people who were trying. And I found this particular story very, very interesting, because it was not trying with arms and revolution or violence. It was trying actually using the German ways. And I think this story is very revealing, because he did do it exactly the way the Germans would have respected it, you know, with words and lawyers and, you know, writing in their language. He did it basically the way their culture works, in their cultural language. And yet he was murdered at the end of the day and paid no respect to. So it was definitely also a sad story as a child, knowing that the heroes, because I think all the heroes we learned about all died and were killed. So that was very sad. But it was great to know as a young person growing up that there were such heroes. It always gives you hope, I think.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And really, my last question: we are making this film here in Germany. Why do you think it's important for young people in Germany to know about Rudolf Douala Manga Bell and Gosodin and Maria Mandesi Bell? And we speak about several people in this exhibition, which Corona permitted, will open on the 13th of April next month.
Yes, I think it is very important. I think for young and old people, there is a terrible lack in Germany of knowledge of colonial history. And as I said, in Cameroon, we learned, again, not always nuanced, but we at least learned it because we're also living there, and we're also living with the outcome of this colonialism. So it was very shocking to me coming at 10, 11 years old to Germany and knowing that the people who initiated it and took part in it don't remember it, basically. And I've heard people say, I think one person, once I had a discussion with a colleague from work who was also of African descent, incidentally saying something, yes, the colonies were just a play toy, something it was fancy to have at the time, not realizing at all the meaning that it had, also economically, how much it benefited Europeans, how brutal it was, how many people died and fought it. So this knowledge is important from both sides. I think healing cannot happen if we don't acknowledge the past. So that Germany is a country that is very focused on remembering the past. So I find it very sad that they don't focus on this part of their history, because it is just as important as any other one in order to also deconstruct certain kind of structures. But I think for young people specifically, I would say it is the same as what touched me as a child. It gives you hope and it gives you power. Learning about heroes, and maybe specifically also Black heroes, because in the Black story all across the world, there's so much pain. So as a young person learning it, growing into it, you can feel very powerless. So it is important to know the heroes, and we know the heroes of the Americas or USA specifically, but there are so many more heroes around the world, so many people who fought and who actually achieved something, who inspire. So I think it is important for young people, whatever your ethnicity, to know that when something isn't right, there's something, always something you can do, and that other people have had, even in times where it was sort of hopeless, have had the courage to stand up and say, this is wrong. So I think those are stories that we all need always, and especially as a country, that, as you probably know, Rudolf Mangabell, he was schooled here, he was here, so he also belongs in a way to this country. So I think it's very important that young people of this country know about him too.
Yeah, thank you so much, Denise. It's been such a pleasure to have you here. Really enjoyed talking. I could ask many more questions, but yeah, I think it's a good moment that we round up. Yeah, we hope to welcome you soon in the exhibition, and to all our viewers, I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Come and see the exhibition once it's opened. It's probably here for at least 1.5 years, so lots of time. And yeah, Denise, thank you again so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you very much for having me.